we look at the things that make us different, the small 0.001% of things that make us different, and neglect the 99.99999% of things that make us the same. We're all so similar in so many ways that the more we can focus on that, I think the more confident people will be in their ability to succeed, because rather than being like, well, I'm different than that person, or I'm different than that person, or I'm different than that person because I can't do what they did, they'll be like, you know what, like I'm almost exactly the same.
Jordan Syatt is a very well-known figure in the fitness industry and the world of fitness and health. He is a strength and conditioning coach, and most notably, the coach of Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the world's biggest entrepreneurs. So I have followed him for a few years now, being formerly in the fitness industry myself. And not only did we have a chat, but we had two, about a month apart. We didn't quite get everything in the first time, and I wanted to pick his brain a second time, and he was very generous with his time in doing so. I really enjoyed this talk with Jordan, and gosh, I'm sure that you will as well. Here we go. Hey, Jordan, the world knows you as the dominant online social media personal trainer of Gary Vaynerchuk. How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so I think, well, as you probably know, I got started in the fitness industry very young, right? So I started, I got my first internship when I was 14. It's because I was wrestling. I started wrestling when I was 8 years old. And as I got into high school, I made varsity and I had to cut a lot of weight and get stronger at the same time. And so I applied to a gym a couple towns over from me just to learn from them. I was like, I'll take the trash out. I'll clean the floor. Just like, let me come in and learn from you, and I'll help you in whatever way I can. And I ended up working at that gym all through high school. And my first ever client there was a 68-year-old guy named Fred. And he had, I remember this vividly, and I'll remember this for my whole life. I mean, at that time I was 14, 15 years old, young kid. My only goal was to be a great wrestler and look good naked. Like, that's really all that I wanted to do. And that was all that I could conceptualize in terms of a reality. Like, in my mind at that time, why would anyone work out for any other reason but to look good naked, right? Like, that was literally all I thought of. And I thank God I had great mentors at that time, because they sat down with me and they sat down with Fred and we had a big discussion. What are your goals? What do you want to do? And his only goal was to be able to pick up his grandson without hurting his shoulder, because he had some torn rotator cuffs. And I vividly remember being like, wow, like shocked that I did not expect him to say that. And it was so odd for me that someone would have a goal that didn't include having visible abs. But that's when I really fell in love with the coaching process, when I was like, okay, so this guy literally just wants to be able to pick up his grandson. That's literally it. So now I have to really, well, if he doesn't care about having abs, then we shouldn't necessarily focus on these exercises or these. We should really focus on this. And that's when I was like, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to make sure you don't hurt your shoulder. So then I fell in love with the process of studying and learning and trying to make sure that I could help each client with what they wanted individually.
So you spent a year after high school, between high school and college in Israel. How did that shape you?
A lot. There are many, many ways. I mean, for example, there's a lot. I think one important place to start with there is how it came about. Like, how did that even happen? So, I remember in high school, leading up to graduation, people were like, yeah, I'm so excited for college, so excited for college. And I was not at all. I was just like, I don't want to go to school. Like, I had no desire like to go to school. It was just, and everyone was talking about, oh, the parties and this and that. I was like, yeah, but like, you don't need to go to school to party. Like, it's like, you don't have to. And I went on a 10-day trip with my youth group to Israel, and I fell in love with it. It was just like, it was the happiest I'd ever been. I loved the country, loved the people. And my rabbi was like, you should think about coming here for a year in between high school and college. And I was like, I mean, that sounds amazing, but I came from a family with very little money. Like we did not have much at all. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford that. And without me knowing, he started like a scholarship fund at my synagogue anonymously just to send one student to Israel. And I had no idea. And then once all the money was raised, he was like, just so you know, if this is something you still want to do, we can send you there for a year. And I was like, that's unbelievable. I'm going to cry. So, yeah. So just like the feeling of love that I got and like knowing that a whole community supported me to go to Israel for a year, that has shaped me immensely in terms of me trying to give back and to help other people in a similar way. But then just living there, I think you're in Australia, correct?
Yeah.
So I think other countries don't necessarily understand this as much because you can travel a bit more freely. You have a lot more diversity. I think in America, a lot of people don't travel. A lot of people, never mind leaving the country, a lot of them don't ever leave their town. They're in one place forever. And being able to travel across the world and learn a new language, I was like, to be put in a situation in which I don't speak the language and be required to learn their language in and of itself is a huge learning experience that I think a lot of Americans don't ever have the opportunity to experience. And I volunteered with Holocaust survivors. I lived in Jerusalem, and like there's just life-changing experiences that give you a whole new perspective. So by the time I actually went back to America and went to college, I was in a very different place than most of the kids that were just starting out their freshman year.
Tell me about your school days. I know that you were diagnosed with ADHD at quite an early age. Tell me about that.
So I was in special needs growing up. I've spoken about how I was in special needs classes growing up, and I had what's called an IEP, an individualized education plan. And it was difficult for me for a number of reasons, not least of which being, at least when I was in school, the kids who were in special needs, they weren't very, trying to think of the best word for it. They didn't do it in a way that made it seem normal, right? So basically anytime I had to take a test, the teacher would either call my name or someone else would come in the room and say, all right, Jordan, like you go to the special needs room. And it would kill me, because then like kids would be like, what are you doing? Why do you go to the other room? And I would lie. I'd be like, oh, like that. I don't know. I'd make up a reason. And, it was brutal. I remember I would go home and I'd like cry to my mom and I'd be like, why am I stupid? And she'd like, it would break her heart. She's like, you're not stupid. And, and my brother would be like, yeah, you are stupid. And, it's like, it was really tough. I didn't like it at all. So, I mean, I've spoken about it a little bit, but yeah, I mean, I struggled with that forever.
Are schools over there geared towards that kind of attitude, or is it still very much you need to go to college, you need to go to it's very institutional, like it's so old, isn't it?
There's one way to learn.
Yeah.
And like there's one way to learn, which is like this way, the way we're going to teach it. And then after you go to this school, then you have to go to college, and then it's like, that's the mainstream norm.
Yep. And you see, like many teachers that I work with, I'm a teaching assistant for all those kids, and they're frustrated because they will say one thing to them, like, you need to just pursue what you're good at, keep following what you're good at, and then but you need to do this test and you need to do it this way, and or you'll get detention if you don't. And so they're kind of trapped. It's the bureaucracy that traps, which you know is unfortunate.
I do think, though, for whatever it's worth, I think it's sort of a good metaphor for life, right? Where it's like sometimes you just got to do shit you don't want to do. Sometimes you're in a system that you don't want to be in. You don't like how it's, you have a boss you don't like. You don't like. I see, for example, on social media, a lot of people get real, the algorithm this, and it's like, I don't like how you have to do this for it. It's like tough shit.
Yeah.
The thing that I've consistently found is that if you're passionate about it, then it'll be worth it. And that's like, at least for me, that's the one thing I found is, for example, I was so bad in school. I would go home crying. I would I remember having a real conversation with my mom when I was younger, just like, I remember like sobbing in my living room, just being like, why am I stupid? Why am I not as smart as the other kids? And my mom still talks about like that was like one of the worst moments of her life, just seeing me just devastated. But I think it's going through stuff like that that helps you almost build resilience in a way that other kids, especially the kids who have an easier time in that school setting, they can't ever relate to. And it gives you an advantage, right? Like when you go through that as a young kid, this like massive adversity in a system where I think it's designed for the majority rather than the minority, which makes sense. Like we're among the minority, I do think. Then when it's designed for them, they don't face that type of adversity. Whereas when you're an adult and you've already gone through that, it's not a big deal. You keep fighting, keep fighting. You learn to fight.
How do you feel your life would have been like if you had, say, been diagnosed 25, 30? How would it, how do you think it would have gone? Do you think it would have gone a similar way, or it was like, because that's what I think. The reason I'm asking is because I've always projected onto myself, like, there are many, many things that I know I would have done differently. Not that I have regrets as such, but I know that was a result of that. Would you have had a different path, or?
It's a good question. I mean, I definitely would have had a different path,
Yes.
at least in some way, right? Like even a small change can have radical downstream effects. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know. I don't think it would have changed that much. Mainly just because even with all of the help, the quote unquote help that I got as a result of it, I still dramatically underperformed in school. Like I was a very strong underperformer, and that was a huge insecurity of mine, and still is. But it's I've turned it into a strength, and I think whether I underperformed while going to sped classes or underperformed without going to sped classes, I think it would have been like I'm underperforming, and I'm not as smart as the other kids. I'm not like, why am I not on their level? Why can't I do what they're doing? Why am I not as intelligent? I think it might have even been more pronounced because I wouldn't have gotten extra time on tests. I wouldn't have been allowed to have a note card, right? And even with the note card, even with the extra time, even with the private room, even with not taking an extra language so I could focus more in the class, I still wasn't performing anywhere near as well as the other kids. So I think it would have been way worse if I hadn't been diagnosed, in terms of like, I wouldn't have been performing as well. And as a result of that, I think I still would have went really hard towards fitness and athletics, which is what I did. That was like the one thing I was good at, was athletics. That was the one thing. And also actually, ironically, acting, performing. I loved doing that stuff. So like I did both of those, and I eventually had to choose between wrestling and performing, and I ended up choosing wrestling because I was more passionate about that. But now later in life, I found a way to incorporate both of them into my work, which is Kenzie Morgan's and into fitness. So I think what I've done is I've gone towards, number one, my strengths, and number two, what I'm passionate about. And as long as you do that, I don't think you can really go wrong. So I think regardless of whether or not, when or if you're diagnosed, you go towards the thing that you're really, really good at and that you really, really enjoy. And as long as you're consistent with that, you're gonna make a real dent in what you want to accomplish. I dated a girl for a long time who had severe ADHD, and like we sort of like bonded over that. And the reason I'm thinking of her right now is because she was very different. That like she was not athletic at all. Not athletic at all, hated sports, hated being in the gym, like also wasn't good in school, like not getting good grades. She ended up doing two things. What, she was very passionate about writing. Like just she loved writing, and especially creative writing. And she has done very well as a creative writer, not just for herself, but also working with kids on creative writing. And so she has a job that she loves. She works with kids, like, and she really enjoys it. And that's really where she gets the most out of her life at this point, which I'm still in touch with her. She's a great person, and we connected on that front. So that was just another like example in my mind of, as long as you go towards what you're passionate about and what you're good at, I don't think you can go wrong.
Do you Do you ever get the imposter syndrome thing happening
Every
even
day,
now? Yeah,
every day, every single day. There isn't a single day that goes by that I don't have it.
really. Yeah. Even
Yeah,
though you've got the credibility.
it doesn't matter. And actually, I think it gets worse. I think the more, like, for example, having someone like you say, like, even though you've got the credibility, even though you have like this many followers, whatever, it's like, I think that makes it worse, because then it's like, why do they think I have the credibility? Like, why do they, like, I'm just a short bald Jewish guy from Boston, Massachusetts. Like, I'm really not anything crazy or spectacular out of this world. Like, just like you might think you don't belong to be where you are, or you're not good enough to be where you are, that you don't think that you have the right to be giving your opinion. Like, I struggle with the exact same shit every single day.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's refreshing. That's refreshing. When you threw out about the ADHD, that just made my brain just start like
I
spinning. So
saw
I
that.
had, yeah. So I had all the things that I wanted to ask, like health and fitness wise, but I just immediately wanted to move straight over there. So, things I wanted to ask you about the ADHD thing. Definitely the imposter syndrome. I'm finding that even though, things like being qualified for my job, still turning up every day, not feeling like I belong there. Um, but yeah, how does the ADHD help you in your job, like in terms of strategy and routine? And how is it a detriment to what you do?
um it's a good question. I would say one of the aspects of it that I think many people might look at as a detriment, but has actually helped me, is that, like, I'm not structured at all, like, at all. I am all over the place. I have, like, the only reason I have any semblance of a schedule is because I have an assistant who does that for me. Before that, I'll tell you a story. So, um, I'm so unorganized with my schedule and with myself and I hate calendars. I hate planning. Like, it makes me feel claustrophobic. Like, I don't like it at all. So one of my best friends, Mike Vicanti, he makes fun of me for this all the time. Um, I started my business in 2011, and then I did this all the way from 2011 until I got my assistant, until 2016, 2017. Anytime I scheduled a call, whether it was a podcast, whether it was a consult call, whatever it was, someone had a call with me, I would never put it in my calendar, but I would always schedule them for on the hour. So it was like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, whatever it is. So if I ever got a call from an unknown number on the hour, then I knew that I must have scheduled a call for that time. I didn't know who it was with. I didn't know what it was about. I just knew I scheduled a call. So I'd always pick up and be like, hey, how's it going? And then that would be how any call that I had. It could be a business consult, could be a fitness consult. That's how I did it. And it worked well. Like, I was fine with it. I never had any issues with it. Never had any, like, I never missed any calls. Like, it's just how I functioned. For whatever reason, putting it into a calendar like made me feel like, ugh, like, I don't like this at all.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I got my assistant who was like, hey, we really need to figure this out. And I was like, you know what? You do it, you take care of it, and then I'll just follow suit. It took her a while to understand that, because I'm her boss. So, like, she doesn't like want to tell me what to do. And finally, after probably like 4 to 6 months, she finally got to a point where I was like, listen, you just tell me what to do. If you tell me what to do, I'll be good. You put me on this plan, you put me on the schedule, I'll do it. I'll look at the calendar and I'll do whatever's there. Like this call right now, I had no idea we were going to do this until 10 minutes ago. The thing came up on my calendar that said podcast in 10 minutes. I had no idea. So for me, I think that's like how I functioned before I had an assistant. Now that I have an assistant, I have that. But in terms of, for example, making content, I know a lot of people plan podcasts, they plan their videos, they're like very structured with it. I don't. I'm very, like, I just go by a whim. Like, I
Yep.
never structure a podcast. I never know what questions I'm going to ask, and like nothing ever. It's literally like, let's just have a conversation. And
Yes.
I've found that people have enjoyed that much more, because it's a real conversation. Like, they're listening to a real. It's not planned. It's not scripted. Like, sometimes they'll be caught off guard. Sometimes they'll be caught off guard. Like, and that's real, and people appreciate that. So I think that's like, people really enjoy that, and I think that's helped me a lot. I think it's been a detriment in regard to actually, like, I think it's been a detriment when I try and work with other people who are much more structured. So if I work with someone and they're a planner and like this is like what they need to understand the schedule, what's happening, that's a big clash.
Yes.
So one thing I've done over the years is I've been very upfront and I've been like, hey, just so you know, I'm all over the place. I suck with calendars, I suck with planning. If you basically need to take charge.
Yeah.
If this is something that you want to have happen, you need to make sure, like if for example, people who want to do seminars with me, if someone's like, hey, let's do a seminar together, I say, like, I'm not going to plan it. I'm not going to do any of the organization. I will show up and I will give a fucking awesome seminar, but I'm not going to do any of the logistics, any of the planning, any of that. If you say, hey, I need you to write a sales email to tell the email list that we're going to do a seminar, cool, I'll do it. Done. But like, I'm not going to do any of the planning stuff. So they know ahead of time. And that's just helped me a lot. Just being upfront and forthright about where I struggle and where I'm strong.
Yeah, that's good. And that is kind of like throwing it on the table for whoever you're working with. So here's what you can expect and here's what you shouldn't really expect, because you will be let down. But yeah, it's funny you say that. Oh my gosh, there's so much in what you just said. Outsourcing things to people is one of the best, I think, strategies that I have come up with. So in my situation, it's just my husband. So things like he would email me the water bill, and now I just email it back. I'm like, you do it. It's very easy for me to do it, but it's not a priority. It's not, my life isn't going to end if I don't pay that right now, even though I've got the money. You do it. So he is now in control of a certain number of things that it's just too, I guess, it's important, but it's not life or death. So I'm like, I'll take care of the life or death. Any calendar stuff, you do that.
I'll tell you a funny story. You'll love, like what you just said. You'll love this. So I hate opening mail. Like I hate it. I don't like it's like what is this? I don't want to have to read this, go through the whole thing. Like I hate it. So I'm no joke. For 3 years, when I was living alone and I was doing my own thing, anytime I got mail, I would put it into a black trash bag. And I had 2 filled black trash bags with mail, like literally massive, 3 years of mail all stuck in a black trash bags. Every time, so my now fiance, my girlfriend, when she would come visit me, because she lived in Atlanta, she would come visit me once or twice a month. I would always, like you're cleaning your room for your mom, like you shove everything in the closet. I would take those black trash bags and I'd throw them in the closet so that she wouldn't see that I just don't open my fucking mail because it's a little bit embarrassing, right? So I throw them in there. Then after we've been dating, I don't know, a year and a couple months, she's going through and she's cleaning the apartment while I'm out working, and she finds these 2 black trash bags filled with mail. And I remember I came back and she was like, what is this? And I was like, I hate opening mail. I just never open it. So she spent an entire weekend going through all of my mail, filtering it. And it was only because of her that I found out I had terrible credit because I wasn't paying any of my student loans. I knew I got mail from the student loan company. I could see it, but I never opened it and I never thought it was a big deal. Yeah. The only reason I found out that my credit had bombed is because I wasn't paying it. It's like the money was in the bank. I just literally just wasn't doing it. Yeah. So then we got back on track. Now my credit score is going up. Still not really where it should be, but it's on the way up. It's because I hate opening mail. I hate doing that stuff. So I'm very much with you on that.
Can I go get something to show you?
Yeah,
it's
sure.
It's behind me. One sec. I'm in my room. Wait. You're going to laugh. My husband just did the same thing to me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There was about $300 worth of just tolls. So my thing in my car didn't beep properly. And it's supposed to beep once if it's working. It beeps 3 times if it's not. So driving through, going to visit my mom. Beep, beep, beep. Oh, shit. Oh, well. gone from my brain. Like often, like, do you think that I go home and go, now, first thing I need to sort out is my, and so he, and all those were unopened. He opened them all. Look how many there are. So when you said that you had the bags of unopened mail, I was like, oh my God, I am you. Like, oh, we are all so similar in many ways when it comes to that kind of thing. So
it's so funny you said it's not life or death. That's how I think. Like if it's really important and like I'll do it, no problem.
Yeah.
If it's like no, I'm gonna do what I'm passionate about, which is making content, which is answering comment, like whatever I love doing, jujitsu, whatever. I'm all in. If it's not life or death, not doing it. But if it's important, I will.
Yeah. I sold my car. We bought a new car this year, and I sold the other one just 6 days ago. And here in Australia, you've got like 2 weeks to transfer it over online. And I got a call yesterday from police saying, this is the police. I thought it was my brother. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. And I'm driving along with the Bluetooth, and he's like, oh, it's Constable, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, shit, this sounds serious. He said, did you own a Mitsubishi, blah, 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 registration? Yes, it is. Did you sell it? I said, yeah. And he said, oh, okay. Do you know who you sold it to? Have you transferred the registration? And I swear I was just like, this is the epitome of the shame you feel when you don't. But it was only 6 days ago. I knew I still had time. And that's the thing. If you know you've got time, you're like, it's day 6.
Whatever.
I'll do it on day 15, not 14. And I just felt so shamed by this police officer. He said, oh, well, I would have done that straight away because it's been involved in an incident. And I was like, oh, shit. He's like, it's still in your name. I would do that now.
Oh, my God.
So I outsourced it. I said, can you just give my husband a call? And so he did it. Because I was driving anyway. But so that's the kind of thing. Like it's when my mum says to me, oh, have you done that? And I've started lying, like because of the shame of I'm 38 and I still can't do a simple task. But yeah, so I mean, yes, it's crazy like that. You know you're capable, but something stops you. And I think it affects me with training as well. Yeah. Before this chat, I said to myself, go for a run. I've just started running again for a marathon next year. And I said, just go for a run because you'll get nice endorphin boost and you won't overthink this chat. And I swear I woke up and it was 6 o'clock and I was just like, oh, my brain wanted to overtake the sensible part. So my brain wanted to go, no, let's sit here and ruminate for a while. And I had to, it was so forced. I had to go almost robotic. You go, put your trainers on, put your clothes on, headphones, walk out the door, and it will magically just happen. But if I let my head take over too much. Anyway, I went for a great run and came back and felt great. And here I am chatting to you a little more relaxed than I would if I didn't. But I think that kind of self-sabotage, especially like when I was training people and when I was in the fitness industry, I didn't realize how potentially it could be related to, I hate saying mental illness because it's just a condition, but like a mental condition, like ADHD or OCD or anything like that. The struggle to do what's good for you. Like if someone said to you, you're going to have a heart attack if you don't lose weight in the next 3 years, then you would probably go, oh, well, shit, I better. And I'm nearly 40. So I'm like, I really want to be lean for once in my life. Now it's coming up. I'm actually taking it seriously. So that rush to do something urgently because it's all of a sudden urgent or important to you. When you trained people, did you take into consideration, like you obviously diagnosed very young because you told me that. Did that come into your mind, like with their mindset, like could this person possibly be undiagnosed or, like when they say I just can't do it or how do I
like when I'm working with a client, I'm working with a client and they tell me like, I just can't do it. That's come up in my mind. It's never been something where I've been like, this needs to be addressed as a reason. Like for me, I've always tried to find like, okay, cool. So that might be something to be aware of, but diagnosis of it or not, my goal is to find a way to get them to do it.
Yeah.
Right. So whether they have it or not, to me, it's not irrelevant, but it's not as important as just finding what will motivate them to do it.
Yep.
Right. So, and that's different for each person. So, well, I do think there's value in getting the diagnosis. Sort of like if I broke my rib, right?
Yep.
There's value in me going to the doctor to see if it's actually broken. But even if I didn't go to the doctor, I would have known it was broken because I could feel it. It was hard to breathe. Like I couldn't train the same way just because it hurt. So whether or not I went to the doctor to get it checked out, that was more or less irrelevant because I knew that I had to alter my way of training. I had to alter my plans in order to achieve my goal. Same thing with this. It's like whether you have the diagnosis or not, my job is just to help you figure out a way to do it. And that's what I'm going to do regardless of whether or not you've got the diagnosis.
So I have a bit of a story to tell you. I was at work the other day and I was eating a salad sandwich and one of my coworkers looked at me and said, "Oh, I wish I could eat that." And I started telling her about calorie deficit and all that kind of thing. So I thought I would throw this question to you. What would you tell somebody who says that they simply can't eat a salad sandwich because they're scared of putting on weight because of, I guess, the bread?
Yeah. And for whatever it's worth, just hearing me say this, I guarantee the first response is going to be defensive in terms of, well, he doesn't know me. He doesn't know my history. He doesn't know my body. And that's fine if that's your initial response. But I've done this for 15 years. I've worked with thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And I've worked with many people who initially had that same response. You don't know me. You don't know my body. But once they take my advice, they're very, very, very happy they did because they see results for the first time. If I could say one thing, it would be you can absolutely eat that. You can eat whatever you want as long as your portion sizes are appropriate. And odds are, if you're not able to lose weight, you're eating more than you think you are. And I think the important thing to say with that is it doesn't mean that you're lying or it doesn't mean you're stupid or ignorant. If you look in the research around people who struggle to lose weight, just statistically, large scale data, people who struggle to lose weight consistently underestimate how much they're eating. And it's not because they're lying, not because they're maliciously trying to get around. It's just because they're underestimating it. And that's it. And similarly, for people who struggle to gain weight, large scale data, they consistently overestimate how much they're eating. So if you ever have a friend like who like really struggles to gain weight, oftentimes they'll say, "Oh, I just eat so much and I can't gain weight." But if you actually follow them around for 2 or 3 days, you'll see they'll take a bite of something or 2 bites and then put it down and walk away. And they're not lying. They're not maliciously trying to make you believe they're eating so much. They don't realize it. So if you're struggling to lose weight, you're underestimating how much you're eating. And if I could recommend anything, don't even track your calories yet. Like I wouldn't worry about that. I would just write down everything you eat. Just make a list for 72 hours, for 3 days, write a list of everything you put in your mouth, including water, whatever, write it down, because I guarantee you after the end of those 3 days, you're going to be like, "Oh, I forgot I had this. Oh, I forgot I had this. Oh my God, I can't believe I had that." And then you're gonna be like, "Okay, you know what? It's not the salad sandwich that I had. It was the fucking donuts and the wings and all that." Like,
Really important question I want to ask you. Super, like, no segue. When you have family members that are morbidly obese, and I know that, and I've heard you talk about this in a podcast before, that you just have to set example. But like, at what point do you think that, I don't know how to ask this question. Like, at what point do you say, "Let me help you, you need," what, like, where's the line? Like, I know people have to help themselves, but when it's family,
yeah,
yeah,
I get it. I mean,
thoughts.
so my brother is morbidly obese.
Lee.
And yeah, Lee, he's morbidly obese. And I don't know, like I'm doing a podcast with him to help him now. Now,
Right.
what a lot of people don't know is we didn't talk for the better part of a decade. Like we have not had a good relationship at all. Very up and down, bumpy relationship.
Yep.
And I've always, throughout all of that, I've always made sure that he knew if and when he needed or wanted help, I'm always here for him. And I would continue to set my example and set this, like, do what I knew was right. My mom, she struggles with it as well. She's very, very overweight too. And I've made programs for her, and I've like written, and I've done everything. I've gone out of my way to really to try and help her, but it's never stuck. And it's emotional, right? Because they're not living a great quality life. Like, that, they're suffering emotionally, physically, mentally. It's hurting them. But you can't force anybody to change. The best thing you can do is make sure they know that you love them, and also know that if they want help, you're there for it. And it just so happened that after a decade, my brother finally reached out. He finally did it. And I was, let's do it. I want to help. Whatever you need, let me know. He's texting me while you and I are on this call right now, letting me know what's going on. We're going to do a call tomorrow. And we've spoken more in the last, I don't know, 3 weeks to 4 weeks than we have in literally the last 10 years. So I'm by no means an expert on this, but I do know, number one, that you can't force anybody to change, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drug, whatever it is. You can't force them. You can try, you can do your best, but you can't force change on anybody, which is, especially when it comes to family, a very scary and emotional thing to hear and to internalize, but it's true. I think it's one of the reasons why I battle with the idea of whether or not you should work with family, because emotions are so much higher. I think it's so much more difficult. So it goes back to everything I've said before, which is let them know that you love them. Make sure they know that you're there for them. Set a standard that shows them that it's possible and that it's realistic and it's enjoyable. And if they come to you, go for it. But I've always found that trying to shove it down their throat, letting them know that you're angry or disappointed. I've tried all of it. I've tried the anger. I've tried the disappointment card. I've tried the scared card. I've tried the future card. I've tried every card. None of that works ever. It just does not work. The thing that consistently works is, hopefully of their own accord, they will take action and reach out to you, and at that time you welcome them with open arms.
Yeah. I guess it's hard when you think of all the years that are slipping away. Like, you think, oh, this is, taken already 10 years, and like, could I have done something? And then, but I'm wondering whether it's selfishly, like, if something were to happen bad, that's great English, something bad were to happen, is it selfish that I will have the guilt of what did I not do enough? But I mean, that's life, isn't it? That's just like that. Normal. Yeah, you can't.
That's being a human, right?
Yeah.
That's being like, if my mom, God forbid something happened to my mom, like, I would feel immense guilt as a result of it.
Yeah.
But realistically, like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like, everything, it was all choices that she's made.
Yeah.
And she, every step of the way, she, like, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried, and she knows that always. You can't force another adult to change.
No, you can't.
And you can always think about where you could have done better and you could have been there for them more. But it really does come down to, they're an adult and they need to make that decision on their own. And the best part about that is, as long as they know you're there for them, when they do make that decision, then you've done your part.
Yeah, ultimately, everyone's a grown up. What about when it comes to, say they have a partner, and do you find that, have you ever trained like partners? Like,
yes.
Client? Yep. Do you find that if one partner loses a lot of weight or makes progress in their health, do you find that in psychological terms the other partner feels left behind, or that they're leaving them behind, or do they ever try and be an enabler and drag them back? That kind of how couples could be anything. I mean, it could be food addiction, drugs, people, I'm sure. That's happened.
It depends on the individuals, and then the dynamic within the relationship. Obviously, for example, some people, like the husband or the wife, whatever it is, they'll be losing weight, right? They'll be losing weight. And in one instance, the other partner could feel upset and demoralized as a result of it. In another instance, they could get competitive with each other and they could like motivate each other. There's no rhyme or, I shouldn't say there's no rhyme or reason. It's very difficult to tell what's going to happen in what couple. I will say the couples that I've seen the best response with that, like the couples that I've seen where one person starts to do it and the other person gets motivated to do it and they do it together as a team, they just have good characteristics of a good couple overall. They motivate each other, support each other. They're unconditionally loving of each other. Whereas the relationship where one person is doing it well and the other person is not, there's usually some type of shame or guilt involved in that relationship. There's a lot of I hate the word, but there's a lot of toxicity within the relationship in which like there's jealousy, enviousness, envy, not enviousness, as envy. So generally, like a healthier relationship, you'll see them both motivate each other and work as a team. Unhealthy relationship, it doesn't nearly end that way.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then I feel like it can go a little deeper than just do I want to exercise or do I want to eat that? How's your fucking chair, man?
I think it's super comfy. It's pretty good. It doesn't do any cardio and doesn't train legs, but I think it's good.
I can tell that it doesn't train leg. I was going to mention cardio as well. I love that you make turn things into a joke with your followers. It's just so good. And it's almost like, oh, thanks for the content. Like, thank you for the
exactly.
Yeah. You've just made like me have to do less work ultimately.
It's funny. I try to be as composed and as like as polite as I can, and I think as a result of that, people have assumed that I don't get mad or I don't get angry. So recently, I've been showing that other side of me, and people have really liked it. And so I've been doing it. I usually, if I got mad or angry, I wouldn't show that side of me because I didn't think people would want to hear it. I didn't think people would like it. And so I hid that. But now as I've made note of when I feel that way, and then I consciously make a decision to make content around that, and it's actually gone really well.
It was fantastic. You were walking along in the snow the other night. I do. I have you might understand this. I have mental blank. What were you angry about the other night walking through the snow? It was so good, but the message just gets through. Like, you don't need to yell, but your demeanor can sometimes change the effect of the message. Like, it's like with the kids, really. I don't yell at them, but you've changed and you're serious. What were you What were you talking about when you're walking through the snow?
Well,
what were you pissed off about?
Last night was because someone got mad because I spoke about starving people and how they're not overweight because
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And you shouldn't. Well, there's political correctness gone mad again.
Everyone is so offended by everything in PC around. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. Every time I put the wig on and do Kenzie Morgan's, people are like, "You're misogynistic. You're sex." I'm like, "Oh my god! How come you've never said anything when I play any of the male characters, or Johnny Bag of Donuts, or whatever, or Dick Tiny, whatever it is? They never say anything about that. But as soon as I put the blonde wig on, then it's a problem."
Do you know or follow the comedian? Oh, I can't even. It's JT Firstman. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name. He's online. He's come out this year because he was doing impressions during COVID. So he would do like, here is an impression of the fly on what's his name's head during that.
Pence's head. Yeah.
And anyway, he's just written something like 5 minutes before we started. It says, "I wrote some offensive jokes on Twitter in 2012 when I was 19 that are now being circulated online. I'm deeply regretful. Sorry for those tweets. I was young and dumb." And then he goes on to just say, that he doesn't stand by them in any way anymore.
That is literally my greatest source of anxiety.
Yeah, right.
That's literally my greatest source of anxiety. Not that I don't think there's any tweets that I have that are bad. I could be wrong. I mean, I don't know. I've said a lot of stupid shit. Like, when you're 19, are you kidding?
Yeah, I know.
If there was a camera following me around when I was 19 years old, I would be canceled immediately. Like, every 19-year-old says it and does stupid shit. Everyone has skeletons in their closet. Everybody has done and said really dumb things that they regret and they no longer stand by. As you were reading his tweet, I got my stomach got in a knot. I was like, that is my worst. I don't think that's my worst nightmare. That's among my worst nightmares. It's like, that's terrible. And I feel bad for him because I've always wondered, let's say something happened like that, right? Let's say they found something, brought whatever. I always wonder, like, would I apologize? Is apologizing the right thing to do, right? Because I was 19 years old. Like, number one, I was 19 years old. I clearly no longer stand by it, right? It's like, if you apologize, the group of people who demand you apologize, if you apologize, it's not even good enough, right? Like, they'll just keep tearing you down. Whereas the people who, if you don't apologize, like, they don't care, that's the people who you like want to be your audience anyway. When you apologize, like, if you did something that you legitimately regret, absolutely apologize, especially if it's more recent. But if it's something like cancel culture trying to tear you down for the sake of tearing you down, like, fuck that. I don't think I would apologize. I think I just keep doing what I'm doing, helping the people that are willing to be helped by me, and that's it. Like, if you're gonna, if it's sort of like the stuff that I see where people are tearing down statues. Like, I saw recently that a school in California named the Abraham Lincoln School, whatever it is now changing their name away from Abraham Lincoln because Abraham Lincoln had slaves. And I'm thinking, like, oh my God,
Oh, I
Abraham Lincoln
know.
is the reason that slavery was abolished. Number one.
Yes.
It's number two is you can't judge people in history by today's standards.
I know.
It's
It's happening here in Sydney too. There's the Captain Cook, it's the same thing, a monument that's in the city. They want
yeah.
to replace it.
It's crazy to me. It's
It's
absolutely
stupid.
crazy to me because what's going to happen and what people don't realize is the actions that people are taking today, their kids and their grandkids and their great grandkids will then judge them by the standards in the future. And we can't know what those standards are going to be. We have no idea. We might think we're doing something virtuous right now, but in the future they could be like, that was terrible. Cannot believe they would. That's what happens all throughout history. People believe they're doing something good and virtuous, and then 50, 100, 200, 500 years later, it is no longer a good thing because that's what happens in society. And if you're going to judge people by what they did 200 years ago, especially someone like Abraham Lincoln, who literally is the reason why slavery was abolished, it's like, if you're going to judge them, then I hope you are ready to be judged by the same standard you set, because it's not going to look good for anybody. Anybody, when you're judged in the future, no matter what, it's going to look bad because
Yeah.
standards change.
Will you do acting, do you think?
I would love to do acting classes or improv. I mean, I'm literally in the best place in the world for it right now. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
everything's closed down. I think if I had to choose, I would really like to do, I've done stand-up comedy a handful of times, and I would really like to do more of that. I really enjoy doing that. And I suck at it just because I have only done it a handful of times, but I've always had fun with it. So I'd like to dive more into that.
Do you prepare for your stand-up? Or do you
Yes,
fly?
yes.
Oh, okay.
No, no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
I very, very intensely prepare for that. I like
Yeah.
could
It's
not imagine going up there and just being like, "Hey, like,
I know.
how about chopsticks, huh?"
I would love to.
You notice things like you notice things a lot of people don't notice. You're easily like able to like you're sort of like caught off guard, and you'll notice something, you'll point it out, and almost that's one of the things that makes comedy so funny is that it's true, it's real. Oh my God, like that's one of the, like when a comic says something that's hilarious, people are, oh my God, it's so true, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
oftentimes it's just noticing these small things about how people are and how they interact that are the funniest things about comedy, is noticing when you make a regular daily situation, when you point it out and how ridiculous it is. That's one of the funniest bits of comedy. I think that's one of the things we look at. We're like, why are you doing that? Like, why is that happening? And
Oh.
when you can articulate it, it's incredible.
What do you love about New York? What made you move there? What do you love about it?
You know, it's funny. There's a lot that I like about it. I number one is it doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, what you're interested in, what your background is. There's always something for you here. Always. Like there's always something that you're going to find interesting, always a group of people that will accept you, always. Like, this city is so diverse and there's so much here for every single person, no matter who you are. So I love that part of it. Also, for me, I mean, the convenience of it is unbelievable. Like, you walk out your door and literally anything you need is available within 1 or 2 city blocks. So, I mean, where I grew up outside Boston, you had to drive like 30, 45 minutes to get anywhere. And so here, whatever you want, it's like, you know what, I want this. So I walk outside and it's there and it's open. 2 a.m, it's open, whatever. Like it's always there. It's always open. And then there is something, for me at least, you might be able to relate to this, that's like calming in the chaos. There's something about like how even like they're crazy tall buildings and it's busy and people everywhere. And for me, I can't work in quiet. Like if I'm alone in my apartment, I can't concentrate, doesn't work for me. But if I go to a really busy, loud coffee shop where people going in and out and it's loud and like I concentrate very well there. It helps me a lot. So I actually like and get more calm in the chaos.
Will you ever have you ever been to Australia?
Not yet. I was supposed to before coronavirus. I was supposed to do what's the seminar called? I forget the name of the company, but there was a big fitness company that had a big seminar. I think it was in Sydney.
Yeah.
That I was supposed to come to, and coronavirus canceled it. But hopefully in 2021.
Was it in about April? Was it an April event?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
The fitness expo. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. That was it. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, you were going to come. Oh, bloody hell. Coronavirus.
I appreciate you. This has been great. And I love chatting with you. I think you're really good at what you do. And I hope we keep in touch. And hopefully if you come here, please let me know. And when I'm in Australia, which will hopefully be in 2021, I would love to connect.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. Yeah, that would be awesome. All right. Well, I will let you go. And have a great new year. Hopefully.
Thank you. You as well. And happy holidays, all right?
Yeah, happy holidays. Okay. Bye, Jordan.